What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this I'm going to break down what's going on with NIO stock, what you should be watching for tomorrow. I'm also going to talk about what's going on with Tesla, SPY, and the QQQ, and break down what the news is saying about NIO stock and the technical analysis. Before I break anything down about all this information, though, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice. And also don't forget about the Moomoo link. The offer ends very soon. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks with the $100 cash reward. The offer ends in just one day. It ends tomorrow, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So NIO is currently down about 1.37% for the day. In my video from yesterday, I predicted that NIO would have a red day today looking at this bearish divergence. That's what happened. It came right down to our support, which we talked about on the 9.2 level, then tried to bounce a little bit off that, but it ended up closing kind of red nonetheless. Despite that, NIO is still holding up quite nicely. And the real question is, what's going to happen for tomorrow? Because you have to remember, tomorrow is going to be the last trading day before NIO announces how its deliveries went. We're going to find out very, very soon. And once NIO makes the announcement on their deliveries for June, it's going to make a massive, massive move. Now, sometimes this data comes out much earlier because July is going to start even earlier in China than the USA. So if it somehow comes out tomorrow, that's going to be very awesome. There's no guarantee, though. I'm not too sure about that. But very soon, by the time the weekend comes, for sure, we're going to see NIO make the announcement, I believe. And then that's going to be very big for the share price. And we should be expecting a very big move. Now, I also want to add just a couple of things about the markets before I talk more about NIO. Nike has come out and they reported their earnings. This was the biggest one for the week. They beat on sales expectations, but they missed on earnings as their margins had dropped. And that's why it has a very mixed report. Earnings per share were a little bit weak, but the revenue was a beat. So very mixed, but still pretty decent overall. And to add on to this, when it comes to the news coming out for tomorrow, we have PCE data being released, so make sure you're ready for this at 8:30 a.m. This may affect how the market moves, especially on the core side because of what Jerome Powell said. We want to see core meeting expectations, so watch that very carefully, especially the month over month and the year over year. Now, after that, we have the Chicago PMI, 15 minutes after the market opens at 9:45 a.m. And then at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time, we have the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report. So expect quite a bit of volatility during the first 15 minutes and first 30 minutes of the trading day. But other than that, there's not much else coming out. But all of this data is going to be big, especially the PCE report. Now, to add on to all of this, there's one piece of earnings tomorrow. I don't know what this company is, but Constellation Brands. We're going to be watching that as well to see what happens with it if you are interested in that earning. And besides that, we're going to be looking at what's going on with NIO now. NIO has an equal weight rating from Barclays, and besides that, there's not much else going on. NIO tends to be green about 53% of the time on Fridays, and we tend to do a lot better in July than we do in June historically. And NIO tends to do better during the third and fourth hours of the trading day. So watch it more carefully during those time frames. And also, we saw an increase in NIO short interest. We saw another 10 million NIO shares shorted. So could this cause another short squeeze? We'll have to just wait and see, but nothing too significant has been going on. The price price ratio is going up as NIO is starting to outperform the market, and NIO is getting some pretty decent volume at 38 million. Not way too low compared to those like 20 million, 15 million days, but it's not too high either. It's just kind of like decent around 40 million, nothing too horrible. Now, NIO also is celebrating its 5th anniversary for NIO Power. So that's once again some awesome news for them as they're continuing to grow. And I consider this once again some awesome stuff. Anyways, now let's talk about the markets, talk about NIO, what's going on. I'm going to be very brief with SPY and many of the others just to make this video quick and short. For SPY, if you're bullish, you're going to be watching this 438 resistance. If we break and hold above it, there's a gap at 439. Break that. So we're going to be watching 440, then 442 as resistances. If it breaks down, if it breaks below 438, the next major support, the very strong support, is going to be around 436, then 434. These zones right over here, that's the 15,200 EMAs. And below that comes 433, and then even lower levels closer to 430 if that ends up failing on us. Now, to add on, we do have a potential inverse head and shoulder structure playing out on SPY as this thing is respecting an uptrend. And the odds favor this thing making its way closer to 440. I am leaning a little bit more bullish, but I'm just not going to be as confident because it depends on what PCE tells us and many other factors. Even though technicals are looking good, make sure you watch for PCE. Make sure you watch the data that comes out in the morning. And that's going to determine if the market ends up just continuing to pump or if the market gets a big rug pull. So be very careful with that. For the triple Q, this is looking pretty decent. It's still trying to hold up. We have a potential inverse head and shoulder structure that has been developing. And if this thing wants to turn bullish, watch it hold above 364. If it manages to do so, watch 366 as resistance. A break above that's going to be a bullish confirmation. That's going to help this thing fly to 368 and 370. If it breaks down, watch 363.5 as support, 363 the entire zone, 362, and then 360 all as support. So watch all of those very carefully. But overall, the technicals are looking a little bit better. It looks a little bit more bullish looking at this overall structure. But just to be safe, watch support and resistance. Now, it also depends on the PC report coming out in the morning, so we're just going to have to wait and see on that. But for now, it is looking a little bit better, and I think there's a good chance that Tesla could help it as well. So transitioning to Tesla, this is looking pretty nice in my eyes, but just to be unbiased, okay, let me tell you the levels on this thing. If Tesla breaks down, hypothetically, just hypothetically, okay, we have support around this 257.5 area since we closed like right there at resistance, which is also going to be supportive above it. If it breaks below that, the next major support is going to be around this 255 level. It's about 254.68, which is currently where the 50 EMA is on the 1 hour time frame. So you're going to be watching this EMA, see if this holds Tesla. This is likely going to be where the support is if it breaks down. If it breaks below that, you're going to be watching 252.5 and potentially 250 after that. If it breaks up, okay, and there's a good chance Tesla's going to turn bullish tomorrow because it's going to be a big day. If it breaks 260, that's going to be your bullish confirmation or breaking a hold above 260. And this thing's going to go flying, in my opinion, to 262.5. Now, if it breaks the second resistance, that's going to be like a double confirmation to me that this thing is going to go all the way up to like 266, which is where it has this like unfilled gap on the pre-market chart right over here. This 266 area, if it breaks above that, 270 could come. And if it breaks 270, there's 275. That's going to be crazy if it pumps that hard, but I wouldn't rule it out, right? I wouldn't rule this out. I mean, it's still possible. This imbalance is up here around 275. So we're just going to be watching these levels. But what do I think is going to happen, right? I gave you guys both the bullish and bearish cases just so that you are prepared because I'm going to be unbiased. But when it comes to my bias, what I think is more likely would be Tesla pushing more. Because first off, we have this potential inverse head and shoulder structure from a technical standpoint that is still looking pretty decent. It's almost symmetrical, actually. It looks quite nice. And this could bring Tesla all the way up to about 266 plus tomorrow. But on top of that, it's not just that. That's not all there is to it. Tesla has been uptrending, approaching its very, very big deliveries announcement, which is going to be coming on Sunday. When Tesla has big announcements, deliveries, earnings, and things like that, when it's uptrending, we tend to see it pop and push up during the big day. That's what typically happens historically. More than 80% of the time, that's what happens. There's a good chance it's going to happen again tomorrow because tomorrow is going to be Friday, the last Friday close before we have Sunday, which is when Tesla is going to announce their deliveries. There's a good chance this thing is going to uptrend and make its way up well above 260, but watch 260 as resistance for confirmation. If it breaks it, this thing has a lot of room for upside to go all the way up to like 266 to 270, depending on where it ends up stopping. So watch that carefully. The odds favor upside for it. I just wanted to make that as clear as possible, but always be open-minded and watch for confirmation just to be safe, because sometimes you never know, especially because Cathie Wood was selling some shares. You just got to be careful. For NIO, this thing is still holding up nicely. If it turns bearish, watch support at 9.24. If that fails us, the 50 EMA on the 1 hour time frame is going to be around there. Even tomorrow, it's not really moving that much. If that breaks, you're going to be watching support closer to like the $9 area to about 8.94, which is where the 200 EMA happens to be. If it turns bullish, watch resistance around 9.6, around that zone. And then if it breaks that, there's 9.75 and then $10 after that. If it breaks above 10, we have 10.5 and many other higher levels. We're not really there yet, so let's not worry too much about like 10.5 or something like that. But what do I think is more likely? Well, this is going to depend on PCE data, how this affects the markets. But then seeing how Tesla may hold up, I think there's a good chance NIO is going to hold above the 50 EMA as long as there's no like bad news. But I'm leaning in the direction that NIO is going to try to hold these levels, kind of trade sideways, try to push up a little bit, get a green close, and it may close in the like mid to high nines, somewhere around there, like the 9.7 area, 9.6 around there. That's what I'm seeing for NIO for the close. I think it's going to have a decent day, and it may close green tomorrow because of the excitement about deliveries. NIO has very strong guidance, high expectations, and it may actually end up meeting them. If it meets them, that's going to be very bullish for the share price going into next week. So what do I think is going to happen? I'm leaning in the direction that NIO is going to meet expectations and give us over 10,000 deliveries for June. But just to be safe, I don't know for sure. I just think that that's what's going to happen. And I believe because of the hype, there's a good chance it's going to hold these levels to start pushing up more for tomorrow. So that's what I'm predicting for tomorrow. But make sure you watch support and resistance and do what you guys have to do, because it's very important to manage risks and work accordingly based off your performances, based off your tolerance of risk and other things like that. All right, guys. So thank you for listening. NIO to the moon, as the long term is still incredibly bright. And peace out.